Jimmy Fallon was 47 minutes into his Tonight Show episode on March 15th, 2024, when a small voice from the audience cut through his monologue like a knife through silence. Security immediately moved toward the disruption, but then the 10-year-old girl said 7 words that made Jimmy do something he had never done in 11 years of hosting. He stopped everything. The cameras kept rolling, and what happened in the next 12 minutes would be viewed over 200 million times and literally save a life that was hanging by a thread. This wasn't a planned bit. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This was a desperate child who had exhausted every option and made a choice that could have gotten her thrown out, humiliated on national television, or worse. But she didn't care about any of that, because when someone you love is dying, fear becomes irrelevant. The studio audience of 240 people went from laughing to dead silence in 3 seconds. Jimmy's famous smile vanished. His hand went up to stop security mid-stride, and in that moment, late-night television stopped being entertainment and became something far more important. Something raw. Something real. Something that would remind millions of viewers what courage actually looks like when everything is on the line. But here's what nobody in that studio knew yet. The reason this little girl was willing to risk everything. The secret her family had been hiding for 8 months. And the ticking clock that meant if someone didn't help them in the next 72 hours, her 12-year-old brother would die. What she said next didn't just stun Jimmy Fallon. It exposed a truth about our healthcare system that nobody wants to talk about. Stick around because what this brave girl revealed will break your heart. But what Jimmy did next will restore your faith in humanity. It was a Friday night taping at Studio 6B in Rockefeller Center, New York City. The energy was electric, as it always was for The Tonight Show. Musical guest Billie Eilish had just performed. The audience was buzzing. Jimmy was in the middle of his thank you notes segment, one of the show's most popular recurring bits, reading humorous thank you cards to random things. The crowd was eating it up. In the third row, sitting between her aunt and uncle, was a small girl with dark braids and a purple backpack clutched tightly on her lap.
Her name was Maya Chen, and she was 10 years old.
She had flown from Sacramento to New York with money her neighbors had pooled together after hearing her plan. Her parents didn't know she was here. They thought she was at a sleepover. Maya had been sitting perfectly still for 47 minutes, her heart pounding so hard, she thought people around her could hear it. Her aunt kept whispering, "Maya, maybe this isn't a good idea." But Maya knew there were no good ideas left. Only desperate ones. Jimmy read another thank you note. "Thank you, daylight saving time, for making me feel like a time traveler who only goes 1 hour into the future and is very confused about it." The audience laughed. Maya stood up. "Mr. Fallon." Her voice was small but clear, cutting through the laughter like a gunshot in a library. The audience turned. Cameras swiveled. Jimmy stopped mid-sentence, his card still in his hand. 2 security guards immediately started moving down the aisle toward her. "Mr. Fallon, please." Maya's voice cracked with desperation. "I need to talk to you about my brother." The Roots, Jimmy's house band, stopped their casual playing. The entire studio fell into a confused, awkward silence. This wasn't supposed to happen. This never happened. Jimmy held up his hand, palm out toward security. Wait. He stepped to the edge of the stage, squinting past the lights to see her better. "Hey, sweetheart, what's your name?" Maya Chen. "I'm sorry for interrupting, but you're the only person I thought would listen." Tears were already streaming down her face. "My brother is going to die in 3 days if someone doesn't help us." The audience gasped. Jimmy's entire demeanor changed instantly. The comedian vanished. The human being stepped forward. "What did you say?" Maya's voice shook, but she spoke clearly, her words hitting like hammers. "My brother needs a liver transplant. We found a donor, but our insurance won't cover it and we can't afford the $450,000. The hospital said without payment by Monday, they're canceling the surgery. Today is Friday." The studio went completely silent. You could hear people breathing. "Mr. Fallon?" Maya continued, her voice breaking. "You talked about helping kids last month during that charity special. You said if kids need help, we should speak up. So I'm speaking up. Please, I don't know what else to do. Nobody in that studio knew it yet, but Maya had just changed everything. And what Jimmy was about to discover would make this moment even more devastating. Jimmy walked down the stage steps, microphone still in hand, and moved directly toward Maya. The cameras followed him, capturing every second. "Come here, honey," he said gently, gesturing for her to come to the aisle. Security stepped back. Maya's legs were shaking as she moved past the other audience members. Jimmy knelt down when she reached him, making himself her height. "Tell me about your brother," he said softly. "What's his name?" "Daniel. He's 12. He's the best brother in the world." Maya wiped her eyes, but the tears kept coming. "He has end-stage liver disease. We've been on the transplant list for 2 years. 3 weeks ago, we finally got a match, a donor. Someone who died in an accident but signed up to be an organ donor. Daniel could actually live." The audience was crying now. You could hear sniffles throughout the studio. "But our insurance company denied the claim," Maya continued, her voice getting stronger with anger now. "They said it was experimental, even though doctors do this surgery all the time. My parents fought them for 2 weeks. We hired a lawyer with money we didn't have. We started a GoFundMe that raised $23,000, which sounds like a lot, but it's not even close." Jimmy's jaw was clenched. You could see the rage building behind his eyes. "How much time does Daniel have?" "The donor liver is viable until Monday morning. If we don't have the money by then, it goes to the next person on the list. And Daniel..." Her voice broke completely. "The doctor said Daniel won't make it to find another match. His body is shutting down." What the audience didn't know yet, what Maya hadn't said, was the rest of the story. 8 months earlier, Daniel had been a healthy middle school student, an honor roll kid who played saxophone in the school band and volunteered at an animal shelter every weekend. Then he got what seemed like the flu. Within 3 weeks, he was in the ICU. The diagnosis was fulminant liver failure caused by an autoimmune condition so rare that only 200 cases are documented in medical literature. Maya's parents, David and Lisa Chen, had already sold their house, cashed out their retirement, and borrowed money from every family member who had any. They were living in a borrowed RV in the hospital parking lot to avoid hotel costs. David worked 2 jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night. Lisa never left Daniel's bedside. Maya had watched her vibrant, funny, saxophone-playing brother become a skeleton hooked to machines. She had watched her parents age 10 years in 8 months. She had watched the GoFundMe campaign plateau. She had watched the insurance appeals get denied. She had watched the clock tick down. So 3 days ago, Maya had made a decision. She found out that The Tonight Show taped on Fridays. She found out that audience tickets were available. She convinced her aunt to bring her to New York, lying to her parents about a school trip. She packed her purple backpack with a folder containing Daniel's medical records, photos of him before and after he got sick, and a letter she had written to Jimmy Fallon explaining everything. And now here she was, having just interrupted a live television show, betting everything on the hope that Jimmy Fallon had a big enough heart to care about a kid he'd never met. What Maya didn't know was that Jimmy Fallon had a secret of his own. A secret that would make this moment even more powerful. But first, he had to make a decision that would change television history. Jimmy stood up slowly, his eyes visibly wet. He looked at his producers, at the audience, at the cameras broadcasting live to millions, then back down at Maya. "Maya," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "What you just did is the bravest thing I've ever seen anyone do in this studio." Maya shook her head. "I'm not brave. I'm scared. I'm so scared." "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," Jimmy said. "It means you do the right thing even when you're terrified." He turned to the studio. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are live right now. This is not scripted. This 10-year-old girl just taught me what my show is actually supposed to be about." The audience started applauding, but Jimmy held up his hand. "No, not yet. Because, Maya, I need to tell you something." He knelt down to her level. "When I was 16, my little sister nearly died from leukemia. I watched my parents go through exactly what yours are going through. The fear, the bills, the insurance fights, the audience gasped. This was something Jimmy had never publicly discussed. She survived because a charity covered the costs my family couldn't afford. Someone I never met saved my sister's life, and I promised myself that if I ever had the platform to help someone else's family, I would. Jimmy stood and turned to the cameras. Here's what's happening right now. I'm personally donating $100,000 to Daniel Chen's transplant fund. Live on air. The audience erupted, but Jimmy wasn't finished. Daniel needs $450,000 by Monday morning. That gives us 62 hours. He looked directly into the camera. I'm putting Daniel's GoFundMe link on screen right now. If you can give $5, give it. If you can give more, give more. Share this video because a 12-year-old kid is either getting a new liver or he's dying, and I'm not going to let that happen. Questlove stood up. The Roots are in for $10,000. Someone from the audience shouted, I'm in for $500. Then another, I'll give $1,000. Jimmy turned back to Maya. Let's call your parents. Right now, on live television, what happened in the next phone call would break the internet. But the real miracle was still 48 hours away, and it would take an army of strangers to pull it off. Within 90 seconds of Jimmy displaying the GoFundMe link on screen, the donation page crashed from traffic. Within 5 minutes, it was back up and the number was climbing like a slot machine jackpot. $150,000, $200,000, $275,000. Donations poured in from everywhere. $5,000 from a college student, $10,000 from an anonymous tech CEO, $25,000 from Billie Eilish backstage. But the real explosion happened when the clip hit social media. Within 6 hours, 50 million views across all platforms. The Rock donated $25,000. Taylor Swift gave $50,000. Apple and Google each pledged $40,000. But it wasn't just the big donations. It was the stories people shared. My daughter had a liver transplant 5 years ago. She's thriving now. Here's $100. I'm a single mom with barely anything, but Maya's courage reminded me what matters. Here's $20. By Saturday morning, 18 hours after Maya interrupted the show, the GoFundMe had raised $580,000. By Sunday afternoon, $1.2 million. The excess would go to help other families facing similar nightmares. On Monday morning, March 18, 2024, at 6:47 a.m., Daniel Chen was wheeled into surgery at Stanford Medical Center. The surgery took 11 hours, and what happened when Daniel woke up would complete the most beautiful story of the year. 6 weeks later, on May 1st, 2024, Maya and Daniel Chen walked onto the Tonight Show stage together. Daniel was still thin, still recovering, but he was alive. His color had returned. His smile was real. And in his hands, he carried his saxophone. The audience gave them a standing ovation that lasted 3 full minutes. Jimmy was crying before either of them said a word. Maya, Jimmy said when everyone finally sat down, you saved your brother's life. Maya shook her head firmly. No, you did. Everyone watching did. I just asked for help. That's the hardest thing to do, Jimmy said. Asking for help when you're desperate and scared and don't know if anyone will listen. You did that. And Daniel, how are you feeling? Daniel's voice was quiet but strong. I'm alive because my little sister was braver than anyone I've ever known. And because millions of people decided that a kid they never met was worth saving. He paused, fighting tears. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that gift. Then Daniel lifted his saxophone and played. He played Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the first song he had learned as a kid, the song he thought he'd never play again. The studio was silent except for the music and the sound of 240 people crying. When he finished, Jimmy announced the creation of the Maya's Voice Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping families navigate insurance denials for life-saving medical treatments. The foundation had already helped 47 families in its first month. Daniel would be the foundation's first youth ambassador. Maya spoke one more time before they left the stage. If you're watching this and you need help, ask for it. You might feel alone, but you're not. There are millions of people who want to help. You just have to be brave enough to speak up. The camera zoomed in on her face, this 10-year-old girl who had changed everything, and she smiled. That smile would become the symbol of a movement. But the lesson Maya taught us goes beyond one story. It's a lesson we all need to remember. Maya Chen walked into Rockefeller Center with nothing but a purple backpack, a desperate heart, and a choice. She could stay silent and watch her brother die. Or she could risk everything, interrupt a television show, face humiliation and rejection, and ask for help from millions of strangers. She chose courage, and that choice saved a life. Her story teaches us something we all forget, that asking for help isn't weakness. That one voice, even a small one, can move mountains. That the right moment of bravery at the right time can change everything. That strangers aren't always strangers. Sometimes they're just friends you haven't met yet. Jimmy Fallon didn't just help Maya that night. He showed us all what happens when someone with a platform chooses compassion over content, when humanity matters more than ratings. Today, Daniel Chen is healthy, thriving, and planning to study medicine so he can help other kids like him. Maya just started middle school and says she wants to be a lawyer who fights insurance companies. And both of them remind us that miracles don't just happen. They're built by brave people who refuse to give up. If this story moved you, subscribe and hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their voice matters. Drop a comment telling us about a time someone showed you courage or compassion when you needed it most. And hit that notification bell because every week we bring you stories that restore your faith in humanity. Sometimes all it takes is one brave voice to change the world. Be that voice.